last session, those of you that will hear will recall that one of the outcomes of that last session was the huge value that your employees can have in your ability to communicate the role that sustainability plays in your company, both within your employees but also with your customers. And on this third session, we're moving to talk about the supply chain. And the full title of the session is Transparency to Impact, Driving Improvements at Scale via Multidimensional Engagement Across the Supply Base. So the interesting thing here is the potential for your supply chain and the management of your supply chain to be turned on its head, and for you to start thinking about not this as a compliance issue, but as a huge opportunity. I'm very, very pleased for this session for our moderator to introduce Pierre-François Thaler, who's the co-CEO of ecoVadis. And without further ado, I will hand over to you to introduce the panel. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you, for being here for the last session. I know you had a full day, so we have tried to make it live and entertaining and practical, so to give you some tips on what you can do to drive more sustainability in your supply chain, and more importantly, look at the topic which is how to collaborate, how to collaborate with your competitors and how to collaborate in your industry. And pleased to be here today with two great speakers. So Phyllis Kong started at the European Commission and now in charge of responsible sourcing and human rights for Ferrero. You will tell us more about that. And Cesare from Clariant. Cesare started his career in finance, then moved to procurement, now sustainability, so really moved up the ladder on contributing more to society.
Thank you.
And you started with P&G and then Johnson & Johnson, and now in charge of procurement strategy and excellence at Clariant. So thanks, both of you, for being here. Just a word on ecoVadis. For those who don't know us, my story in this space started 10 years ago when I was working for a big procurement supply chain software company, and I met with the CPO of AXA, and he told me, Pierre-François, I have a problem. My CEO was in my office this morning. He gave me a hard time because AXA, we've been downgraded by an ESG rating agency because we are not doing anything in terms of managing sustainable procurement with our vendor base. And he said, I have a problem. I have 50,000 vendors. No way I'm going to hire an army of auditors to assess all this. And so we had a couple of coffees, discussed for 2 hours, and then we said, why don't we create a collaborative platform, global database, in order to rate suppliers on sustainability and avoid duplication of efforts. So that's what we've said doing for the past 10 years now, and we're operating this platform on behalf of 30,000 companies in 100 countries. And ecoVadis, we are now 400 employees across Asia, Europe, and the States, and happy to work with the Ferrero and the Clariant in particular. So today we are, I think you have two introductions explaining a bit about your program, and then we'll open for discussion. Thank you.
Yeah.
Please.
So thank you very much for everybody's coming, and also thank you very much for the invitation from ecoVadis to have the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Phyllis Kong. I'm a sustainability project developer in Ferrero, working in the sustainability department. And I was actually a little bit overwhelmed by just looking at the speakers list, because I don't have any director, CEOs, or whatever title. So hopefully I will be able to provide some more practical experience explaining you a little bit more on what we have done in Ferrero in terms of responsible sourcing. So I guess everybody knows what we do. So basically, we are an Italian confectionery company. It's a family-run business. It's still owned by the Ferrero family, but recently there's a change of the management that our CEO, Mr. Ferrero, is going to step up to be the president of the company. So there will be another person taking on the CEO position. So we're very proud to say that we are one of the 3 largest chocolate company in the world, and we have a sales of more than $10 billion US dollar. We have a very wide range of product portfolio, ranging from Nutella, Tic Tac, Kinder, to Ferrero Rocher and Moncherie. And we have business over around the world in 53 countries, and we also produce our own product in our own manufacturing sites. and we have up to today 22 production plants. And on top of that, we are investing a lot on hazelnut cultivation. So far we have around, actually 9 agricultural companies also spreading all over around the world. In total numbers of employees, we have more than 40,000 people directly employed by Ferrero. And so Ferrero is a company which really believes in sustainability and also in CSR, because it is actually embedded into the business values and also how what is the right way to do our business. And sharing values to create value is absolutely the key for us in a way how we do business, as I was mentioning before. And so we are very committed to mitigating negative impacts in our supply chain and also in how we operate business, as well as contributing positively to the society. So in order to really show our commitment, we have actually set up very ambitious goals in terms of sustainability. So in terms of sustainable raw material sourcing, here you can see that we are very committed into sourcing 100% of sustainable certified raw materials, including cocoa, palm oil, sugar, etc. And so these are just some of the very small examples that I would like to show you today. And I think also in terms of environment, we are also ambitious of reducing the carbon footprints and also use more recycled packaging materials for our packaging products. So you may have a question of how are we going to achieve the goal, these ambitious goals and this very ambitious commitment set by the group. So one of the ways to do that is actually through the implementation of our responsible sourcing program. So it is actually guided by the SDGs and also the United Nations Guiding Principle of Business and Human Rights. It's a very long name. So really the aim of this program is to create a sustainable supply chain, ranging from raw materials to packaging and also other indirect supply. So basically we have taken what I call it a bracket approach, that we look into two ends of the supply chain, from agricultural level on the farms, and also we look at the level where the product raw materials stop at the gates. So we have come up with this comprehensive approach of our program, and it's actually comprised by two major pillars. One is related to sustainable agriculture. So under this sustainable agriculture, we have further translate that into different Ferrero farming value programs based on different raw materials. And on the other hand, we actually also feel that it's important to engage with our tier 1 supplier, hopefully tier 2, tier 3, and 4, to really show the awareness and also to start a dialogue with them. So that is really how we structure our responsible sourcing program. And obviously, it is designed and also developed, and all activities are developed and implemented based on our code of business conduct and also some international guidelines. So Ferrero is actually a member of AIM Progress, which the representative of AIM Progress, Catherine, is here today with us, and she also spoke yesterday at one of the sessions. So we're very proud to be a member of AIM Progress, because we really do see that this platform is a really good way for a company like us, to discuss with other members company on how we should implement and what is really the way to implement a good responsible sourcing program. And by the way, for those who don't know what AIM Progress is actually a platform, an association comprised by more than 40 FMCG companies on responsible sourcing. So members include Nestle, Unilever, Heineken. They're all on board. So we really find that it's very beneficial for us, because even though we're competitors, but we really have a very open dialogue, to speak about, how and what the way to go forward. And this is the Ferrero journey of responsible sourcing. So everything started from a code of business conduct, and I think it is really the starting point for most companies as well. And then in 2012, we have publicly announced our commitment to sustainable agriculture. So it is what we call FACTS. And further translated to that is our, as I was mentioning before, our Ferrero farming value programs based on really different raw materials. But in the meanwhile, we feel that, we have been tackling a lot. We work with farmers a lot on the ground. But what about our tier 1 suppliers? So we really see that a gap is missing. Yes, we do audits with our supplier, but that is actually managed by another function of the group. So in terms of social audit, it is something that we are still really missing. So and therefore, we have developed a comprehensive sustainability supplier program recently, assessing our suppliers, their sustainability performances. And recently, we have also started our ethical compliance program. And so really, there's no really one size fits all of how a responsible sourcing program should be developed, and what are really who is the leadership and who is really really lagging behind. So because every company has different structure, different resources, and different goals. So in the end, it's really depending on what the purpose are, and then what are how does it align with your business objective. And currently, we are working on our human rights due diligence program. So hopefully it will be, it's a big work for us. Hopefully it will be cascaded down into different supply chain. And together with ecoVadis, we have actually worked with them since 2015, and we have invited our suppliers to engage in the ecoVadis assessment. So far, we have invited around 470 suppliers to take on this assessment process, and very encouragingly, around 210 suppliers have already been completed the questionnaire, and it has been assessed. So I think it's a very encouraging rate where suppliers really support us in this initiative. And so together with other AIM Progress members, we have come up together an idea of collaboration, following really the concept of mutual recognition. Because on an AIM Progress platform, we have already been sharing social audits, etc. So really in terms of supplier assessment rating, why don't we do the same? So back around 1.5–2 years ago, we have started our conversation with some more advanced ecoVadis users, AIM Progress members. So we started really a very deep discussion on what exactly we should do. So the discussion went back and forth, and some companies pull out, and then more companies joining. So last month ago, 2 weeks ago, we've officially kickstarted our joint AIM Progress Supplier Sustainability Assessment Initiative. So we really do see that it is very beneficial to contribute back to our responsible sourcing program, because there are obviously more leverage from brands. And I hope to explain a little bit more during our Q&A session.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, also from my side, thank you, Pierre-François, for the introduction and for having us here, and to you to listen to me as well. I'm also with no title, so you should not feel too bad. And please, behind the volume, keep it low. In my company, I'm banned from using microphone because of my voice. And I will leave you the doubt like I had 5 years ago when I joined Clariant, of what Clariant does. So you'll have a chance to go on our website and learn a little bit more and dive into the topic of today. Sustainability, in my view, is one of those once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a profession like procurement to finally get out of the class B or C a ghetto we are in. How many of you, it's about lifting a phone, getting another 5 cents from the supplier, thank you and goodbye, see you next year. If, like each of our companies, really wishes to be a leader in sustainability, there is no way that this will ever happen without procurement and supply chain. Because we represent 40, 50, 60, in the chemical industry, sometimes 70% of the total turnover. So we are clearly working on our operations, in our plants, but if we don't engage end-to-end with the entire supply chain, there will be no real, tangible, long-term progress. We as consumers go to the consuming companies, the L'Oreals and the P&Gs, and say, I want to have a better sustainable product. What do? They turn to us. What do we need to do? We need to turn all the way back to the beginning of where these raw materials come from. And this is how we started 5 years ago. It's easy to convince your colleagues in the plants. It's much more challenging to convince suppliers that have different agendas, different priorities, resources, cultures, and so on. And then we said, 5 years, when I joined the company, we started from scratch. We're going to do, in the first 12 to 18 months, the things you see on the screen now. First of all, How many of you had the chance, like we did, to go through the Dow Jones? So you say, you know you want to improve the sustainability performance. We're not going to just scratch our heads or look at the wall. There is a report, and it's clearly outlined what needs to be done to improve. So I went to my boss and said, these are the things we need to start working on. The second one, benchmark. You go and talk to your colleagues in the industry, you go beyond your industry, learn from the best in class. And with that, we started to develop and deploy our strategy. And the first pillar is, what do we expect our suppliers to do in order for them to join us in our sustainability journey? So as also Phyllis was saying, code of conduct and other documents where we lined out our expectations and our ambitions that suppliers would also have to be meeting in order to be long-term partner to Clariant. And then on the right, we started to experiment. So now I have a supplier code of conduct, I have a policy. How do I actually see whether my suppliers, whether they sign these documents or not, are actually working on it, and most importantly, making progress? And how many of you had to go to the corporate sustainability colleagues and say, can you audit this supplier? Sorry, we don't have resources. Or develop, like we did, self-assessment. You send a document out, it comes back with a signature, no proof points, but then this is how we started. And in this benchmark exercise, we came across with Together for Sustainability. And essentially, TFS is allowing you to exactly make this sustainability performance transparent, and then provide a basis on which to drive improvement. So, as the title of our session, from transparency to impact. So on the left-hand side, all the members on their own, they do risk analysis, they have their policies, and then in the middle, you have the programs. On the top, the supplier assessment questionnaire that on behalf also the chemical industry, ecoVadis, is running. On the bottom, you have a classic on-site audit program with other companies that the chemical industry, same with ecoVadis, has built a partnership, companies like Intertek and SGS, that go out and provide audit reports for the suppliers they are nominated. And then this becomes input, the right-hand side, for the individual members to say, okay, now I know how you perform, and now this is how I'm going to engage with you in order to improve the performance. Because the end result is not just to know how good or bad we are. It doesn't matter whether we have a low or high score. What matters is the engagement that you're going to make in order to improve your performance. That's the key, and that's what we expect our suppliers to do. In the meantime, TFS has become this huge initiative. And as you can see, these are the most leading companies for the ones that know in the chemical industry in Europe, but now slowly going to the US. There is a lot of very significant activities everywhere in the world to promote the initiative. And as you can see, all of a sudden you have 6 and now more than 7,000 assessments. So you can use those ones to map your spend against that and have a visibility and then drive the process for improvement. You have a number of audits, and then as you can see, 70% of the suppliers that go through this process improve. And each of those 18 members has specific targets on how to contribute to the initiative via the number of assessments and audits they need to provide each year. And this is the output. So on the left-hand side, you see the Clariant scorecard and the journey that we have made. And it's just not to say that we are good and patting ourselves on our shoulder. We need to and we must provide the example first. I cannot go to a supplier and say, you need to do an assessment if I don't do it myself, and I don't prove to them that actually I do it regularly and I improve over time. And my ambition is to be the best I can be in my own industry, because when I come to your supplier, I look in your eyes and say, you need to do this because I do it. And on the right-hand side, maybe it is an example. There is a correlation, maybe not. We don't know. But certainly, these are coming more and more often. So it's counterintuitive that you are becoming more sustainable performance, your performance increases, and you will get more business. Well, that's one example of a supplier, in this case in India. And actually, some of the suppliers now come to us and say, hey, I would like to have business with Clariant, and here's this scorecard that I did on my own. Now, where it's very exciting that we have done all the work in this work in the past 2 years, we are now going into the impact phase. So the scorecard not only provides a segmentation of the performance according to the different areas you see there, but most importantly provides you the basis for improvement because specific improvement areas are outlined. And so now we engage, my colleagues engage with the suppliers that they are responsible for, sitting down and say, here's my aspiration, this is what you need to work on. We have segmented the scores, we have different risk levels, and depending on the risk level, your supplier need to commit on doing certain activities and improvements, otherwise there will be a business consequence down the road. And you will no longer be able to work with Clariant, which in this context actually means not be able to work with the entire chemical industry. That, in few words, what we have done, our journey, and how TFS industry initiative fits in that.
Okay, thank you, Felice and Cesare. So, well, we'll open for discussion now, and so prepare your questions. I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes. Now, before talking about this, collaboration, I wanted to focus on your own programs, and we've seen your achievements. So maybe the first question is on the challenges. What you've not described on, what are some of the challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them, or what are some of the challenges you still face, and can you share some views on that?
Let me go first internally, and let me say a few words internally. It seems long ago, but it's just 5 years. I remember when I was talking to my colleagues about all of this, and some of them would say, Cesare, this is great stuff, but I have a real job to do. And this is a lonely place. But luckily things have been moving, and they're moving quick, and they should be moving even much faster. But then I heard also in some other ones, sessions, build as you go. Find the early adopters. There is some colleagues who have an issue. Their plant suppliers is being shut down because the government no longer accepts they're polluting the water where the kids are going to go play or drink. And then he has a real issue. And then you start from that, and then it's the snowball effect. This is what we have seen in procurement. The other thing, it needs to start from the top. Our CEO said, this is one of our 5 strategic pillars, but he went beyond. He said, this is my expectations. I want to be the gold standard in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. And when the results come out every year, you don't want to be on the wrong end of the stick that says, we don't get there because procurement does nothing. So this was an open door to go back to my CPO and say, in order for us to get there, this is what we need to do. And then, obviously, deployment becomes much easier.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, actually, we face very similar challenges. And actually, all the challenges actually have a list of them. They come in different layers and also in different levels. So absolutely, the top-down approach is really missing there because there's a general lack of understanding of, what is really the benefits of assessing, and also engaging with our supplier. What is really our business benefit for that? So this is always a question where the top management ask us, and we actually spend 1.5 years to lobby internally to get this program done. It's a really long process. And also, another challenge is about the communication with buyers, because the buyer play a very, very important role of connecting us to the supplier. Without them, we don't even get the information of where we're sourcing from, who our suppliers are, what are our volumes, because that will really help us to strategize, how are we going to move forward. So this is really it's super challenging. And I think in terms of implementation side with supplier, when we start rolling out the project, and a lot of suppliers call out and say, is it a requirement? Does that have to do with anything with our commercial relationship? You only buy a small volume. Why should we do it? So I think in general, there's really a need to build a capacity, not only internally, but also externally. And what we have been doing is, there's also no particular Ferrero training yet for the buyers, which we're intending to do, because in the end, we need to lift up the level playing field. Without that, we cannot really get things done. And really, I have a very bad experience internally with some of our buyers. Whenever they see us, they run away because we are coming, just like your people. We are giving them extra work. And another important point is that in terms of the buyer objective, their sustainability is not in their agenda. So really for them is extra work is a burden. So I think if this piece is also consolidated from the management, and I think it will accelerate much faster.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you look back at your programs, and if you look back at what you've done over the past 5 years, is there anything you will do differently retrospectively? Is there anything you will start doing first or do in a different order?
I would even be more assertive now that I see where I am today. And certainly one thing that we have introduced only 2 years ago, we have developed from the second year, third year, a sustainability roadmap. So that I discuss with my CPO, and then we go to the category leaders and the region heads and say, these are the priorities for next year. Yes, 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 everybody goes home. Some of the things happen, some of the things don't. Since 2 years, we have now cascaded these strategies at individual procurement level. Every manager, he or she, has a KPI to deliver. And every month at the Management Committee of Procurement in Clariant, these KPIs are reviewed. And by the way, we have 8 KPIs this year, 4 of them are sustainability. And by the way, these KPIs are linked to bonus. So all of a sudden, it becomes very clear that when you have a stick in it, this will go better. So in hindsight, this probably would have, and I could have and should have pushed faster.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, for our side, I would say there's a lot of infrastructure work that we have to do within the company because we started in a very small team, and really engaging with our first-tier supplier and assessing their performance is absolutely not the priority. So I really wish to speak to the board and also our management much earlier before we started, and also I think generally it's really frank. It's not really I don't really want to lie or so we really didn't have very clear vision of where we wanted to go. We tried. Our responsible sourcing journey is more of a trial and error. So let's say we try out this project. We roll out and see what will happen. If I have to make a change, I think I will really refer back and really looking into a more long-term strategy and what is our vision, what is our goals, rather than trying out here and there, and in the end you have to integrate them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe let's turn now to collaboration. And first question for you: which one of you will consider your company being part of the chemical or food or FMCG industries? Good. One. Okay.
One.
So you should contact, if you're part of the FMCG, you should talk to AIM Progress. There are great initiatives. So for all the others, I guess you're in different industries, and I guess you are potentially looking at, other way to create in your own industries, collaboration on this topic. And we see this happening across all sectors, automotive, financial services, you name them. So maybe the question is, how did this get started? It seems like an obvious idea, to collaborate, but the difficult thing is to get, the first sparkle and to get the first, 4 or 5 companies agreeing to do something which is, unproven.
Yeah, if I may start, and by the way, I see very nice questions which I'd like to answer, which I will answer. No matter how big you are and how many resources you are, what needs to be done, nobody can do alone. This was the BASF. You've seen they are one of the founding members of TFS. They could say, "You guys do whatever you like. I know what I need to do. I'm doing it on my own." The point is, in my personal view, very clear. I still hear a lot of people that say sustainability will provide us a competitive advantage. No. Sustainability will only provide a license to operate, and if we do it quickly, we'll save the planet. And if we are still debating that, then I think we have a real issue. And once you focus on the greater good that these companies have done, then I think the key challenge is governance. So that's why TFS has spent 3 years with only the 6 founding members to develop the methodology, to select the partners, to identify the objective that each of them had to deliver, and the penalties also that would be incurring to if they don't do their part. because it's easy to piggyback on somebody else's work. And then commit resources also to develop the work streams that we are running. And in these work streams, you further develop one of the questions, the assessment, the audit protocols, the environment is changing, you need to go back and revise. And this, we all have constraints, and these are the key, in my view, success factors.
Yeah, actually for our initiative it's only 2 weeks to 3 weeks old. So, but I can actually share a little bit more on how the history of it and how we get started and what is really the motivation. So I think the conversation started around a year and a half or 2 years ago, where there are more advanced ecoVadis users, in-progress member, starting to suggest, based on the mutual recognition concept, why don't we just share our scorecard? Because in progress has already been providing a platform to share social audits of our share supplier. So why shouldn't we really do the same with sharing the CSR rating? Because there are some more companies in terms of their responsible sourcing program, they opt more for the CSR assessment approach, while some companies they started with a compliance approach. I think So, also in terms of implementation of the whole, CSR assessment initiative, internally, often we really encounter a challenge that supplier don't really want to do because they're, providing us a small volume. But if we come together, saying that our other brands are also, your clients, then there is more like motivation and also more leverage, to invite more suppliers to be on board. So I think this is really the key motivation. And also I think in terms of the corrective actions, rather than one company going to the supplier and say, hey, look at your scorecard, these are the weaknesses, please do that. And then the other company go again and say, hey, this is the scorecard, please do that again. So there's a lot of fatigue of different requests from different companies. But since we're working on the same vision, why don't we just collaborate and we try to speak to the supplier and come up with like a common solution to work together during the journey.
Yeah, let me just, if I may, go to the questions to also. Yes, TFS, like the other initiatives, is updating the audit and the assessment protocols. Imagine 5 years ago, each of us going to the same supplier asking about the same questions with the same questionnaire, 80–90%. Now industries, verticals are emerging. And so the next level up, in my view, I hope, will soon be that those initiatives talk to each other and collaborate. What TFS has done has gone to the logistics audit company and said, we would like to mutually recognize. There is no point because those suppliers, again, we share. Some discussions, they were not so in agreement, and TFS simply said, SG, whatever the name is now escapes me, audit done with the transport company is as if we had done it. And sooner or later, like quality, remember what has happened. The ISO emerged, and hopefully this will happen here too. The other question, if I may, and I like it, let me smile, do you need to train your procurement managers? We all know, you go to a procurement, you go to a training, you get out of the door, 20–30% is gone, 1 week later, 80% is gone. And this is where you need to have a lot of resilience. We do waves every year for our procurement colleagues and for our suppliers. We work with these topics every day, so it's given. They don't. We need to continue, and then you only see over time and huge, enormous amount of efforts, see that little by little this gets embedded in the way they operate.
Okay, I think we have time for still a few questions, so old-fashioned way. Do you have questions in the room?
What is the incentive to do this? If I may just also answer that one, which is, how difficult it is to create TFS OIM. You need to have people that are true leaders, that have the visions, that go through the quarterly numbers. The CPOs of this company said, we must come together. We need to do it together. There is no other option. The CEO of Clariant said, I want to be the leader in sustainability, not because this will give me a pat, a nice, I go to the lunch and dinners, and, he goes to a 3-star Michelin on his own anyway. So, because believes this is right. Because this belief, it's not just another corporate initiative, it must be the way we do our business. Because there will be no business if we don't do it.
Do you have questions? Okay, so I'll have a last one for you. You know, you were mentioning that, both of you, that, you know, if you had to do this again, you know, you would have started by being, you know, more assertive or more strategic to start with. So, looking at the future, what could you do, or what should you do? You know, talking to Mr. Ferrero or the new CEO of Clariant, to, you know, ask him to set up more, you know, ambitious or more bold, you know, goals. You know, what do you think you can do, or what do you think you can ask for?
I think my responsibility is that I need to develop very ambitious targets and then show how they align with the overall company strategy and the objectives that we receive from our CEO, and make sure, starting from my CPO, that they provide the resources that are required to realize them. And we all know, we all fight with the same issue, fighting for attention and fighting for resources. But, you know, I think it's part of a single largest responsibility to make sure that if we don't do it, nobody else will do it for us. That's my view.
Okay, Phyllis?
Yeah, I think the first step is to have the foot into the door to speak to the board. Well, no. Actually, I think it's very important, as what Cesare was saying, that it's very important to, you know, set a very clear objective, you know, not only the visionary or commitment, but really the concrete achievement that we're expecting ourselves, you know, to be at. And also, detailed roadmap planning is important. And I think another point is to really continue, you know, progressing and also accelerating the program, our current activities, because in the end, you really need to, you know, get the buy-in and get a full support internally. You need to have something to show. You need to show the impact and show how it is actually related and linked, you know, the business, the value.
And if I just may add briefly, one other thing we are starting now. Now we have created the conditions for making this sustainability performance in our supply chain visible and describe we're driving that. Now we go back to the business units and say, guys, this is what procurement is doing. This is how we are creating value to you by, on one hand, protecting your business, because we know where the risks are now and we are actually addressing them. And on the other hand, working together with you to proactively also communicate to the outside what we're doing and allowing them to show what Clariant as a whole end-to-end supply chain is doing. Because like we do, I'm sure your sales and marketing colleagues also face questions coming from your customers. What are these guys in procurement supply chain doing? And then all of a sudden we get invited to the management committee of the business units, which some time ago was simply a dream.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Pierre François. I think that was a wonderful way to finish off this session. And if I could, I'd like to just highlight 4 key takeaways for me from Track C, from the 3 panels that we've had this afternoon and the way they've successively built on each other. So in the first one, we had a big takeaway about thinking more holistically than your investment return. And we then heard about the idea of using the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, but working with them strategically, using them in a way that's relevant and material to your business. And then in our last 2 sessions, we heard so much about don't try to do this alone. Work with your employees, work with your supply chain, develop your coalitions, build momentum. And then finally, of course, we heard be more assertive, set ambitious targets. You can push harder and you can go further. So those are my top 4 takeaways from our last 3 sessions. I'd like, just for this last session, to thank our moderator, Pierre-François Thaler, and also our speakers, Phyllis Kong and Cesare Guarani. I would invite you to join me in thanking them in the usual manner. Thank you.